I stayed in Cunning for a while at the end of that winter. The landlord of the guest house, Chan's Inn, was an acquaintance from my past. I stayed for half a month, and in the end, under my coercion, he only symbolically charged a small amount of rent. Before I left, Shangzhen repeatedly confirmed with me if I really wanted to stay here alone. After getting my affirmative answer, he sighed, took a fire extinguisher from the cabinet, and hurriedly walked to the porch, pointing out the red arm to me. Do you know how to use the fire extinguisher? Learned it during high school fire drills, I answered vaguely, and seeing him looking as if facing a great enemy, I accidentally laughed. All right, I won't start a fire. I'll order takeout. It's not that I'm afraid of you cooking. He glanced at me, and I subconsciously raised my eyebrows, signaling him to continue. He made a zipping motion across his lips and said nothing more. After he left, I slept for a while, then went downstairs from where I was staying, crossed the streets and a few long alleys, to the nearest flower and bird market. The scent of flowers that hit my nose was mixed with the smell of bird droppings of various colors, strong and light as I walked along. I walked a bit further into the market and bought a bunch of red roses along the way. The seller was an old grandmother, wearing reading glasses, sitting on a small wooden stool by the stall, listening to music while trimming thorns. I also bought a bunch of straw flowers. Walking further into the flower and bird market, at the very end was a somewhat simple aquarium. Oxygen valves were on in the tanks, with bubbles constantly rising, and a tank full of goldfish swimming in between the bubbles. A beam of light penetrated the fish tank and fell into my eyes. The bright water light fell on my face, and I paused for a moment, suddenly feeling darkness before my eyes, not knowing what tripped my feet, and actually fell down without warning. When I woke up, I wasn't in a hospital. The unfamiliar room was very simple, with a wooden table and a plank bed randomly placed, and dusty feed bags piled in the corner. I sat up and only then realized my skirt was a bit wet, my legs were covered in mud, and my coat was full of fishy smell. How long has it been since you ate? A clear, moist male voice suddenly came from outside, not matching this simple environment at all. In my impression, such a gorgeous baritone should be standing in a lavishly decorated concert hall receiving everyone's attention, not appearing here. I forgot. I thought about it, indeed couldn't remember what I last ate. Maybe hypoglycemia acted up. Thanks. You can even forget that? He lifted the door curtain and walked in, the dim yellow light falling on his shoulders. I squinted my eyes, and in a trance, felt a sense of familiarity. Came from Beijing. Didn't eat before departure, and was busy sleeping after landing. Traveling alone? He blocked the light from the ceiling lamp falling on my face. I looked at him against the light, my heart churning, yet unable to say what was wrong. Came to Cunning to stay for a while. I adjusted my emotions and picked up his words, finding he was pouring water into a disposable cup, holding a sandwich commonly sold at convenience stores. Then don't go out alone at night. It's not safe. I met him on my first day in Cunning. He said his name was Zhang Shiking, a doctor at the People's Hospital, and he happened to come to buy goldfish today, out of professional habit, after diagnosing that I didn't have a sudden dangerous disease like cardiac arrest. He still waited for me to wake up outside the market boss's restroom. I accepted his sandwich and treated him to a bowl of the Minus Bridge rice noodles at a small restaurant outside the flower and bird market. While eating the noodles, I noticed his hands, distinct in their knuckles. Even just holding chopsticks made me involuntarily associate these hands holding a scalpel. I casually found the topic didn't expect doctors to have a habit of buying fish. It's been many years a habit. I didn't miss the tenderness in his eyes at that moment, like the wave that belonged only to the river Kaminzu Zhimo's writing. Long and romantic. I didn't expect the second encounter with Zhang Shiking to come so quickly. He pushed open the door of the consultation room, and both Dr. Lian and I looked over. He walked into steps before realizing there were people in the room, repeatedly saying sorry, preparing to retreat. I subconsciously called out to him, "Dr. Zhang." Didn't expect it to be such a coincidence. I gave Dr. Liang a meaningful look, signaling we would continue next time, then decisively picked up my bag and chased him out. If I knew I would see you again today, I should have gone to make a silk banner in advance. There were many people in the hospital corridor, and Zhang Shiking and I weaved through the crowd, walking and chatting casually. It's all what I should do. You're too polite. I don't know if all hospitals, whether weekdays or holidays, are always this bustling. I followed Zhang Shiking for a long way, finally stopping outside the emergency room, watching him busy inside with a stethoscope, and only then realized what I was doing. A young mother held a crying baby on a blue long chair. I sat next to her, watching the daylight slowly fade from the room, my consciousness gradually blurring, and unknowingly fell asleep leaning there. When I was woken up, it was already dusk. Zhang Shiking stood in front of me, holding a can of hot milk. Even with a face full of confusion, he politely didn't ask any personal questions. "Drink it while it's hot." He sat down very gentlemanly, and while I drank the milk, he cast his eyes on the people receiving IV drips in the emergency room. After a moment of silence, perhaps considering I had hypoglycemia from hunger when he saw me last time, he suddenly suggested, "Let's go to the cafeteria for dinner together." After the meal, Zhang Shiking took me to a nearby bookstore. It was far from the library here, and medical books were hard to buy. I scanned the store, wanting to remind him to change places, but saw him crouched down in front of the photography bookshelf. I knew most domestic photographers, not many published books. The one in his hand was a landscape collection called Return of the Birds. I walked around the bookshelf, casually took a few books and held them in my arms, waiting for him to choose. Then pretended to be relaxed and asked, "Do you like photography?" "Haven't taken any myself, but really like looking at them." "Then do you like this photographer?" I asked casually, my heart involuntarily anticipating his answer. Zhang Shiking didn't answer, took the books I chose to pay, and as if seriously thinking for a while, he slowly said, "I bought every photography collection since Chen Sheng debuted. There are very few domestic photographers who use light to set off colors like this. He's been in the industry for a long time. Her most popular time has passed. Many people say a photographer's career peak is only a few years. Maybe she's already past her best time." I said this with a trace of sadness, my heart beating unprecedentedly fast. For some reason, from the first time I saw Zhang Shiking, I had an unprecedented sense of familiarity. Clearly, we had only met twice. Everyone wants to express different things at each stage. The best time of her career should be decided by herself. I was stunned, stood in place for a while to recover, and while he hadn't turned around yet, I controlled all the perceptions that almost rushed out. Return of the Birds was my fourth landscape photography collection. I entered the industry at 18. 7 years until now. I traveled to every place I marked on my world map. The world was bustling, and the sense of smallness and loneliness generated from observing the world almost shattered me. Return of the Birds had been on the market for a month, with mediocre results. I stood at a crossroads, searching for direction, but found a way out. Zhang Shiking gave me a ray of light. That night it rained in Cunning, and Zhang Shiking and I said goodbye at an intersection. I don't know if it was the gentlemanly demeanor carved into his bones that made me feel that even just walking side by side under the moonlight on a tree-minus-land path was more comfortable than other grand yet empty romances. At the intersection where we parted, I took the initiative to say, "My name is Chang Huan. You haven't asked from beginning to end. Do you think it doesn't matter or think names aren't important?" Zhang Shiking raised his head. His glasses reflected the streetlight, making it hard for me to see his expression clearly. But soon, I heard him answer, "No, I think if you're willing, you will take the initiative to say it." "Nice to meet you, Chang Huan." I lowered my head and smiled, turned around, and raised my right hand to wave behind me. The price of a Return of the Birds was 40-8 yuan on 6 mil. That night, I possessed more happiness than receiving a reward of 40-8,600 yuan. It was brought by Zhang Shiking. That night before sleeping, I poured water and medicine, then opened my computer, clicking into a long minus standing folder from the desktop. After the college entrance exam 18, I carried my camera from Beijing to Kunming, traveling through big and small cities in Yunnan. The last leg of the journey, I stayed at an inn in Liyang for 7 days. Now thinking about it, this trip wasn't perfect in the end, because I was careless, lost a very important memory card, and missed the flight home, stranded at the airport for 6 hours. The rare beauty was in the travel journal provided by the guest house, where I had a 7-day conversation with a guest I had never met. I didn't even know if the other person was male or female, their name, or if they also happened to travel through here. Fated to open that book, see the photos I pasted and the annotations under them. But the fleeting spiritual connection was not fake. If my initial feelings for Yunnan were those large ink minus splash minus like color blocks, then in these years my frequent return visits, to put it bluntly, were just for that one sentence left by that person: next stop is Kunming. The world is vast, and I have countless times imagined the scene of meeting that person on the streets of Kunming. Sunshine, green trees, Siu-Ai-Hu Lake, red minus billed gulls, spring scenery so brilliant. Unfortunately, I never found that face. At 3 a.m., I selected a picture of Iray Lake from that folder as my computer desktop. Lying in bed thinking about many things, my brain was running at high speed the yellow sand and sunlight of the Sahara, the 1,000-foot blue ice of Lake Baikal. Every frame I faced like an abyss. Hard to find a way out. Most incredibly, in the end, I actually saw Zhang Shiking's face. He wore a white coat, standing in the sunlight, willow catkins flying. He nodded and smiled at me. Warm as March spring light. The next afternoon, the doctor from Beijing called to ask about my sleep the previous night, asking why I didn't chat much with his old classmate Dr. Liang before leaving. I was selecting flowers at the flower and bird market at that time. Hearing his words, I paused in place to think for a while, only then suddenly realizing my sleep time for these 3 days had exceeded 6 hours. Maybe the scenery of the spring city is too beautiful, I perfunctorily replied, the flowers in my arms red and passionate, delicate and dripping. I'll be back in 10-plus days. We'll come find you for a follow-up then. Day 1. Hang up first. How could I not say Zhang Shiking and I had fate? After hanging up, what I saw at a glance was him wearing a plaid shirt with a sapphire blue sweater, black casual pants below, paired with Adidas's new white sneakers, holding a bunch of fresh straw flowers, chatting with the old lady at the stall. Zhang. I walked over, glanced at the layout of this flower and bird market, thought about the distance from here to the hospital. Especially came to buy flowers? Used to live here, got used to it. Zhang Shiking seemed to always be gentle as jade, without a trace of the harshness that comes with long time in this line of work. The brilliance he possessed could illuminate a world. Originally wanted to transfer the book money to you after we parted yesterday, but forgot to add your WeChat. I took out my phone wanting to scan his Paimon code. Unexpectedly, the QR code popped up, and I was stunned. He gave me his WeChat business card. Saw you in Drive Liang's consultation room last time. Didn't know what happened to you. He held flowers in one hand, a transparent umbrella in the other. If there are problems, can contact me anytime. I didn't stand on ceremony anymore. Friend request successful. I suddenly found his cover photo and avatar quite familiar. This is Iray Lake, right? I clicked to enlarge Papa Catkins as half foreground, my favorite composition method when young. Yes. Used it for quite a long time. When he spoke, it was very gentle. So gentle I felt all girls in the world couldn't escape sinking for it. Taken by your girlfriend, right? I tentatively asked. He was stunned for a moment, then smiled again. It's her, but we're separated now. I'll be on the 4th day in Kunming. Because I had nothing to do, I slowly resumed simple work. There was a mass activity at Siu-Ai-Hu Park that day. Could see a group of people flying kites from afar. The park was full of people. I took pictures of red-billed gulls and the crowd for a while. Set up a tripod, wanting to take a time-lapse video next to it. I never dreamed I would encounter someone snatching my camera in broad daylight, even less that it would be such a coincidence Zhang Shiking happened to be there too. I chased 3 streets for the camera, and when I was extremely tired, I was tripped by a brick, my whole body kneeling on the ground. Zhang Shiking ran much faster than me. Like a gust of wind, quickly disappeared. I limped behind, comforting myself as I walked. Lose money to avoid disaster. Lose money to avoid disaster. I didn't expect Zhang Shiking to chase the camera back. He had an obvious scrape on his face. His usually wrinkle-free pants were full of mud spots. He rushed about, then pressed the camera snatcher to go to the police station. I followed behind him. Words several times reaching my throat, then I swallowed them back. That evening, Zhang Shiking and I gave statements at the police station. The police handed me the camera, asking me to check it. I took out the memory card and plugged it back in, opened the camera, confirmed no photos were lost, and the camera wasn't damaged. Zhang Shiking originally just feared I was carrying something too heavy, wanting to help me lift it. But when he saw the memory card I took out, his eyes flashed, and for all the following time he seemed to be daydreaming. We came out of the police station. It was already late. I stood on the steps, still couldn't help asking, "That camera isn't particularly valuable? You chased so hard? What if he had accomplices? What if he brought a knife? What if you had a car accident while chasing?" Zhang Shiking's whole state was off. I shook his sleeve hard. Only then did he wake up as if from a dream. "Your memory card, do they all have stickers?" This question was completely unrelated to what I said. I rolled my eyes. "I just said so much to you. You didn't listen to a word?" "This sticker, did it come with the memory card when bought?" "I pasted it. My cards all have it pasted." I had so much contact with Zhang Shiking. Never seen such an expression on his face. I didn't understand at that time, thought about it much later, only then understood what that wry smile at the corner of his mouth represented. It was bitterness, regret, the helplessness that the past couldn't be pursued. "Changwon, do you like Yanan?" he asked me. Under the moonlight, I didn't know if my eyes were blurry, actually feeling his eyes were a bit red. "Like it. That's why I've come many times. First time should be when I was 18. I opened the floodgates, walking side by side with him in the evening breeze. I didn't know July was Yunan's rainy season, had to carry an umbrella every day when going out. But even with an umbrella, couldn't block that pouring rain. Zhang Shiking walked me to the guest house where I stayed. Seeing him turn to leave, I simply ahed, sitting on the steps. Fell when chasing the camera, knee hurts. I looked up at him. He stood beside me, eyes complex. "Isn't drive Zhang a professional?" I urged him. Waited 5 seconds. He walked into the convenience store next door. Bad alcohol, cotton swabs, and gauze crouching in front of me. When I take photos, I wear pants. Now flesh and blood and fabric were already stuck together. He carefully pushed my pant leg up, closer to the wound. But after a long time, flesh and blood and fabric were stuck very firmly. I clenched my fist and sucked in a breath. Simply closed my eyes, waiting for him to be ruthless. The expected pain never came. "Dr. Zhang?" I opened my eyes, saw him frozen. Couldn't help speaking. "Although the fall was quite painful, it's not this serious, right?" Soon he increased his strength. I couldn't say another word, could only wait for the severe pain to pass. Alcohol poured on my knee. I felt the cotton swabs circling near the wound. A breeze blew on it, cool. The burning pain of the wound also alleviated a lot. I looked at the top of his head, had an impulse to touch whether his hair was soft or hard, but only thought about it, until finally he wrapped the gauze. I didn't say another word. "Hey, made you dumb?" He raised his head, tying a knot, looking at my face. No pain. I bent down to pick up the cotton swab on the ground. Because of this movement, Zhang Shiking's and my faces were suddenly less than 5 centimeters apart. I could even feel when my hair brushed his face, that moment of his trance and helplessness. "Zhang Shiking," I gently called. Timely sat upright. "You don't have a girlfriend now, right?" That night the moonlight was like practice. Temperature a bit low behind us. The convenience store's light was dazzlingly bright. Zhang Shiking for the first time forgot to say goodbye to me. I scrolled through Zhang Shiking's moments. There were many moments I felt he was another me in a parallel universe. In these years I've gotten busier, my own time has become less and less. Some habits I've abandoned quite a bit by now, but Zhang Shiking hasn't. He would personally go to the flower and bird market to buy a bunch of straw flowers, would walk into places full of fishy smell to pick a goldfish, would leave daily skies on moments, would pay special attention to solar terms. His avatar was Ere Lake. Shooting techniques similar to that desktop image I chose. He had always been appreciating Chen Sheng, while also understanding her. And the vast sea of people, such tacit understanding. I searched for many years, also waited for many years, really couldn't bear to miss it. Cunning had reigned these past few days. Plus the wound on my knee. I hadn't gone out for 3 days. During these 3 days, I sent Zhang Shiking many WeChat messages. He only replied with a few words, his wording even more distant than when we first met. On the 4th day I went out. First thing went to the hospital. But after arriving didn't know what excuse to use, could only go to Dr. Liang's side first. 20 minutes of psychological counseling, I was exceptionally cooperative. Until the end communication part, Dr. Liang showed a gratified smile. Looks like Cunning really is a relaxing place. She prescribed medicine while supplementing my medical record on the computer. If everyone had your effect, whoever wasn't in a good mood should carry their luggage and come to Cunning for a short stay. I was exceptionally cooperative, in the end. Still couldn't help asking that drive. John from that day? Is he a Yunnan local? No. Dr. Liang clipped her pen to her collar, very willing to chat. From Beijing. Voluntarily transferred here a few years ago. Speaking of which, he's a person with feelings, otherwise who would willingly come from the capital to this great southwest. How did he and his ex-girlfriend break up? Broken up for 3 or 4 years. Said she felt he was a doctor, too busy. Patients were his partners. After coming out of Dr. Liang's consultation room, I saw him in the hospital lobby holding a folder, walking briskly. Because I didn't want to disturb his work, I simply went directly to his office in the emergency department. I told other doctors I was his friend, so they let me sit at his desk and wait. I had just sat down when I saw that Return of the Birds he bought that night. Opening the front cover, on the flyleaf was my self-designed logo, a circle with CS2 letters embedded. When Zhang Shiking came back, I was asleep on his desk. He lightly covered me with a coat. My sleep was light. I woke up but didn't move. For half an hour, I relied only on hearing to judge him walking over to close the window, adjust the air conditioner temperature, turn off the water dispenser, then sit at the desk opposite.